So, yes. So, can you hear me clearly now?
Yes, I can hear you clearly, sir. Please speak on, sir. We can hear you clearly.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So, the question you asked me,
yes, sir.
I said that I wrote a book, I wrote an article about industrialization in West Africa future. That was about years ago.
Yes, sir.
I wrote, so what I'm saying clearly is that before the structural adjustments program,
yes, sir,
the industrialization was a dominant discourse among West African states. So from 1986 to 1990, discussions about industrialization disappeared. And that led to the disappearance of the regional industrialization and manufacturing sector. What happened then within 1918 to 1990 was the period of structural adjustment program. That was what they call the swallowing of bitter pill by IMF and World Bank. Many West African countries, particularly Nigeria and other African countries, were actually forced to take up IMF conditions. And the IMF conditions, one of which is that you must liberalize the economy, you must embrace privatization. And then when you embrace privatization, you also have to embrace commercialization. Deregulation, the concept commercialization, privatization, deregulation, this thing came about. And this actually made West African countries, particularly Nigeria, our country, to begin to embrace neoliberal model. And what that has done, that led to the total collapse of the core country manufacturing sector and industrialization, which led to our current economic crisis and our current economic doom. Take for instance, you made mention of Kaduna textile industry. So you made mention of textile industry generally.
Yes, sir.
But let me say, before now, when the textile industry was booming, Kaduna alone had about 10 companies. And these 10 companies employed, each of the company, I employed about 4,000 staff. And 10 of those companies are not working as of today. What that means is that we have lost 40,000 workers. I am saying in terms of Kaduna alone. I am not talking in terms of other countries, other parts of the country.
Yes, sir.
What that means is that we have clearly forgotten, we have clearly thrown away the engine room of development, the engine room of economy, which is industrialization. In any case, the West that have forced the Nigerian state and other West African, other African countries to go by the speculation of the conditionalities of IMF. They know that neoliberal policies, which they push to frustrate, they know that what neoliberal policies do is to frustrate growth and stunt development. Take for instance, the same West who are actually telling the Nigerian state that they should go and privatize privatize the oil sector, privatize NPC. This same group of people do not see anything wrong that a company like NNPC is spending millions of dollars to pay staff for a company that does not produce crude. They do not. So what I'm saying therefore is that all over the world, privatization has not proven to be the best way to manage state economy. In any case, what we do in Nigeria is what I call booty and crony capitalism. The only thing the government officials do is to send government properties of government corporation to themselves. So what we do is that we end up privatizing the privacy. Do you understand me? So we're giving more money to those that have stolen public resources, that cannot not account for public resources. And when they privatize this company, the most annoying thing is that they do not even have the capacity, the technical know-how, the competency to run these companies. Take for instance, what has happened to Nike? What has happened to Nike? You know, Nike was just private, they pack it up. No, what has happened? Look at the current matter we are talking about, PHCL. Even despite the conversation about privatization, the Nigerian state is pumping billions of money into the company, a company that has been private, a sector that has been privatized. So what am I saying here for? What I'm saying here for is that we must move away from the intellectual illusion that privatization is the way to go. No country in the world, and I say this and I challenge any non-economist to show me any country in the world or a continent in the world that had been able to pull its people out of poverty using the neoliberal policy of privatization. Because what privatization does is there are two basic laws of capitalism, which is private profit making, maximization, and exploitation. The private sector driven economy, or those who are in the private sector, they are just out there to make profit. So government must come as a stabilizer to make sure that these things work. In any case, even if you walk away from that, I think the primary responsibility of government is to do business. Government has the responsibility to manage state resources for public good. That's what it is. So if you know this idea of people begin to tell you that government has no business in business, that is the highest, the hypothesis, the zenith of intellectual fraud. Because I tell people, for instance, if government cannot manage business, the primary responsibility of business government is to do business. That is what it is. Now, what happened in the First Republic? How come in the First Republic, the textile industry we're talking about, how come before the African states, Nigeria and West African countries, and Nigeria, my country, what happened that before we embrace the neoliberal model, before we embrace the conditionalities of IMF, before the structural adjustment program, things were getting better, things were better. What happened that time? And we were not talking about government that time. So what has happened? That the government has outsourced its responsibility under the disguise of private sector, and you do not outsource governance. You cannot outsource governance. Why you cannot outsource governance is because those who brought you into power surrendered their sovereignty to you so that you will be able to manage their resources on their behalf. Therefore, it is intellectual. For me, it is the kind of intellectual deficiency for people to begin to argue that government, that privatization is the way to go. No, privatization is not the way to go. Because in any case, yes, I've not seen any government, any country in the world that embrace pure naked capitalist movement, which we see in the market fundamentalist principle, that have been able to lead its people out of poverty. Because the state must come in, the state must provide incentive, and when I make incentive, state must ensure the availability of affordable energy. The state must ensure that energy security is sustained. The state must make credits and loans available. The state must make the infrastructures available. These are how countries are run. So no country in the world, can actually make progress without industrialization. Industrialization is the engine of any country's economy. We should stop deceiving ourselves. All the time we have seen market fundamentalist movement in 3 countries of every 5 countries in Africa is talking about, and countries, the market fundamentalists will tell you about Africa rising. Since we're having discussion about Africa rising, open up your economy, open up your economy for market, open up your country for liberalization and commercialization. We have seen more private sectors, and the more we see private sectors, the more we see unemployment, the more we see government corruption closing, and economy is shrinking. That's what it is. China did not, and I make bold to say this, China did not grow by abandoning industrialization. China did not grow by saying, okay, we are embracing what do they call it, private sector. What China did was to make huge investments in infrastructure. China supported industrialization. South Korea did the same thing. Japan did the same thing. Singapore did the same thing. These are countries that are standing tall. These are countries that understood that there is nothing really you can do without government leading the process. In my book, in my article, I said it globally. Global testament means evidence. The global evidence has shown that the private sector privatization cannot pull people out of poverty. It can lead to nation. Government must come in and do the needful. Bishop, are you aware?
Yes,
are you aware that Aramco oil is owned by Saudi?
Yes, sir.
So how come they not turn it away? So we must not. And I repeat this, we must not outsource governance to private sector. We must not outsource governance to private sector. In this country, during the time of military regime, we had refineries that worked all through. But what has happened? The advance, the coming of the politician, the civilian, because what do we do in this of the world, Bishop? The most frustrating thing that even those who are top businessmen in this part of the world are just representative of the white people by proxy. Now the fear is not even about the white supremacy, but the black man inferiority. That's what it is. But it is important to note. Before that, our conversation, and those who study the political science or sociology in university, the conversation we have with them is to say that we are where we are because of the colonization. Of course, that contributed, but what happened? The frustration, the sabotage happening to African economy and African business and Nigeria by the black is even worse what the colonial master did.
Yes.
The colonial master didn't take our brain away. I make bold to say that America was colonized by Britain. Nigeria is not the only country that was colonized. There are other countries that were colonized. And at a point in time, people sat down to say, wait a minute, we need to do this our way. And there is no country that can adopt a policy that is not going to help it make progress, because what is happening to us is a total reflection of the kind of policies we do. That's what it is.
Yes.
So to the question proper about industrialization and textile industry, look, the textile industry will not come back any moment soon. If I thought it will come, because there are no leadership. If you look at our leadership compass, we really do not have clear direction where we are going to. That's what it is. We really do not have clear direction where we are going. If you bring 10 Nigerians to ask them questions, where exactly is the government of President Tinubu leading us to? None of them will provide answer. They will begin to say one or two things. So what do we do? Governance is that we just float. We come in, we employ spokesperson, we just float 4 years, 8 years, and we create more problems and needs. So we need to have clear strategic policy. We need to have clear government state strategic policy that shows that in the next 2 years, this is where we are going. In the next 4 years, this is where we are going. In the next 5 years, this is where we are going. That is how things are run.
Thank you.
Governance should be run like clear strategic documents that must be pursued. That's the problem. And that's what we need to do, Bishop.
Thank you so much, Mr. Liberty. I do appreciate you. Thank you, sir, for that brilliant conversation. All right.